If you're hearing this message right now, don't rush past it. Take a breath. Put everything else aside for just a moment, because sometimes the message we need most is the one we almost ignore. You may have arrived here feeling tired. Maybe you're carrying something nobody else knows about. Maybe you've been praying about the same situation for days, weeks, months, or even years. Maybe you're asking God for direction. Maybe you're waiting for healing. Maybe you're asking Him to restore something that was broken. Or perhaps you're simply exhausted from trying to figure out what comes next. And if that's where you are, hear this clearly. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible. And your story is not over. There are seasons when God seems incredibly close. And there are other seasons when you pray and hear nothing. Those quiet seasons can be frightening. You begin wondering whether God heard you. You wonder whether you made the wrong decision. You wonder whether the door you've been waiting for will ever open. You wonder if the dream you once carried was really from God at all. But silence does not automatically mean absence. A delayed answer does not automatically mean a denied answer. And a closed door does not mean God has abandoned you. Sometimes what looks like an ending is simply the place where God begins doing something you cannot see yet. That's why I want you to take this message seriously. Not because you should become afraid. Not because you should believe that something terrible is about to happen. But because your attention matters. Your heart matters. And the season you're walking through matters. You may be closer to a change in your perspective than you realize. Maybe God isn't asking you to understand everything today. Maybe He's asking you to trust Him with the part you cannot understand. Think about how often we demand answers before we're willing to move forward. We want to know exactly how everything will work. We want to know when the breakthrough will come. We want to know who will be there. We want to know what happens next. But faith doesn't always work that way. Sometimes faith means taking the next step without seeing the entire staircase. And perhaps that's what you need today. Not a complete map, just enough courage for the next step. If you're waiting for healing, keep believing. If you're waiting for restoration, don't assume the story is finished. If you're waiting for provision, don't allow today's lack to convince you that tomorrow will always look the same. If you're grieving, don't believe that your tears make you weak. If you're confused, don't be ashamed to ask God for wisdom. If you've made mistakes, don't assume you've disqualified yourself from His grace. And if you've been afraid, remember that fear does not have to control your next decision. You can acknowledge fear without obeying it. You can feel uncertainty without surrendering your hope. You can be tired and still have faith. You can cry and still believe. You can have questions and still trust God. That's important because sometimes we think faith means never struggling. It doesn't. Faith means that even in the struggle, you continue turning toward God instead of away from Him. There may be someone listening right now who has quietly been saying, God, I don't know how much longer I can do this. If that's you, I want you to know that you don't have to pretend you're stronger than you are. Bring your exhaustion to God. Bring your disappointment. Bring the questions you don't know how to answer. Bring the pain you haven't been able to explain to anyone else. You don't have to clean up your heart before you pray. You don't have to find perfect words. Sometimes the most honest prayer is simply, God, I need you. And that prayer is enough to begin again. Maybe you've been looking for a sign that you should keep going. Maybe this is your reminder. Don't give up simply because you cannot see the outcome yet. You have survived days you once thought would destroy you. You walked through things you never imagined you'd have to face. And somehow you're still here. There were moments when you didn't know how you would make it through. But you did. Look at the evidence of your own life. The difficult chapter did not have the final word then. And it doesn't have to have the final word now. So before you make a decision out of fear, before you walk away because you're tired, before you convince yourself that nothing can change, pause, pray, breathe, and remember that you don't know everything God may be doing behind the scenes. What you see today is not the complete picture. You see the problem. God sees the possibility. You see the delay. God sees the process. You see the closed door. God sees what may be waiting beyond it. And you see the weakness you feel right now. God sees the strength that can grow through it. So take this moment seriously. Not because you need to panic, but because you may need to change what you're listening to. Stop listening only to the voice that tells you it's hopeless. Stop allowing fear to predict your future. Stop allowing one painful season to define your entire life, and start making room for hope again. You don't need to know exactly how everything will work out. You only need to remember who you are trusting. And if you've been waiting for God to remind you that He has not forgotten you, let this be that reminder. Keep praying, keep believing, keep moving forward. And most importantly, don't walk away from God in the very season when you need His presence most, because this chapter may be painful. It may be confusing. It may be taking longer than you expected, but it is still only a chapter. The story isn't finished. Maybe you've been asking God for an answer, but what you really need right now is reassurance. You need to know that you haven't been forgotten. You need to know that the prayers you whispered when nobody was around were heard. You need to know that the tears you cried in private were not meaningless. And you need to know that the disappointment you've experienced does not mean God has stopped working in your life. Listen carefully. You are not required to understand God's entire plan in order to trust Him with today. You don't have to know how the financial situation will work out. You don't have to know how the relationship will be restored. You don't have to know when a healing will come. You don't have to know what tomorrow will bring. You can simply say, God, I don't understand this, but I trust you. That may be one of the most powerful prayers you can pray, because trust becomes real when you don't have all the answers. It's easy to trust when everything is going according to plan. It's harder when the plan falls apart. It's easy to praise when the blessing arrives. It's harder when you're still waiting. It's easy to say you believe when the door is open. It's harder when you're standing in front of a closed door wondering why God hasn't opened it. But sometimes the greatest expression of faith is continuing to trust when you cannot yet see the reason. And perhaps that's where you are today. You're standing between what you prayed for and what you can actually see. Don't let the space between those two things destroy your hope. Waiting is not wasted time. There are things that can only be developed in waiting. Patience, character, wisdom, discernment, dependence on God. Sometimes we ask God to change our circumstances when He is also using those circumstances to change us. And I know that isn't always easy to hear. When you're hurting, you don't want a lesson. You want relief. You want the situation fixed. You want the phone call you've been waiting for. You want the good news. You want the answer. And God understands that. He understands your humanity. He understands your exhaustion. He understands the moments when you've said, I don't know if I can do this anymore. But even when you feel like you have reached the end of your strength, remember this. Your weakness does not scare God away. Your questions do not scare Him away. Your tears do not scare Him away. Your imperfect faith does not scare Him away. You can come to Him exactly as you are. And perhaps you've been carrying guilt because you haven't prayed as much as you think you should. Maybe you've been distracted. Maybe you've been angry. Maybe you've questioned God. Maybe you've even wondered whether He was listening. Don't let shame keep you away from the one you need most. Come back. Just come back. You don't need a perfect speech. You don't need to prove anything. Start with one honest sentence. God, I'm here. And then stay there. Sometimes return to God doesn't begin with a dramatic spiritual experience. It begins quietly. One prayer, one verse, one moment of surrender, one decision to stop running from the pain and allow God to meet you inside it. And if you've been running, this may be your moment to stop. Stop carrying everything alone. Stop trying to control every outcome. Stop rehearsing every possible disaster in your mind. Stop believing that you must solve tomorrow before you've even lived a day. Give God what you cannot control, and then focus on what you can do today. You can pray today. You can forgive today. You can choose kindness today. You can take care of yourself today. You can make the right decision today. You can refuse to give up today. You don't need tomorrow's strength today. Grace is given one day at a time, and that means you can breathe. You can take another step. You can make it through this day. Then tomorrow, you can ask God for strength again. There is something else I want you to be careful about. Don't allow disappointment to turn into bitterness. When you prayed for something for a long time and haven't received the answer you wanted, bitterness can quietly enter your heart. You begin comparing yourself with other people. Why did they get their breakthrough? Why did their prayer get answered? Why does their life seem easier? Why am I still waiting? Be careful. Comparison can make you forget your own journey. Someone else's chapter is not evidence that God has forgotten yours. Their blessing doesn't mean you're abandoned. Their progress doesn't mean you're behind. Their story is not your story, and your story doesn't need to look like anyone else's. God may be doing something in your life that cannot be measured by someone else's timeline. So celebrate what God is doing for others, and keep trusting Him with what He is doing in you. Maybe your biggest battle right now isn't your circumstances. Maybe it's what those circumstances are making you believe about yourself. You're starting to believe you're not enough, that you're too far behind, that you've wasted too much time, that you've made too many mistakes, that God couldn't possibly use you anymore, that your best days are behind you. But don't let one season speak louder than God's promises. Your mistakes are not the same thing as your identity. Your past is part of your story. It is not automatically the definition of your future. You may have made choices you regret. You may have wasted opportunities. You may have trusted the wrong people. You may have taken the wrong path. But there is still grace. There's still room to grow. There's still time to choose differently. There is still reason to hope. And if you're hearing this while carrying regret, release it. Learn from it. Take responsibility where necessary. Make things right where you can. But don't build your entire identity around something God is teaching you to leave behind. You are not required to live forever inside the worst thing you've ever done. You can begin again. And maybe that's the message you needed today. Not that everything will magically become perfect tomorrow, but that you are allowed to begin again. You can pray again. You can hope again. You can trust again. You can love again. You can dream again. You can believe that there is still purpose ahead. And if you're listening while your heart is broken, I want you to remember something important. Healing doesn't always happen all at once. Sometimes healing comes slowly. One morning you realize you didn't cry as much as yesterday. One day you notice you can think about the situation without feeling completely destroyed. One day you laugh again. One day you wake up and realize you've begun looking forward instead of backward. That's healing too. Don't despise small progress. You don't have to feel completely healed today. You only have to keep moving toward wholeness. And if you're waiting for God to restore something, leave room for Him to restore it differently than you imagined. Sometimes restoration means getting back what you lost. Sometimes it means receiving something new. Sometimes it means finding peace even when the old situation never returns. And sometimes the greatest restoration is the restoration of your own heart, your joy, your confidence, your peace, your ability to trust again. That's why you shouldn't place God inside a box and tell Him exactly how your miracle must look. Pray boldly, believe deeply, but surrender the method. Tell God what you desire. Then trust Him with how He chooses to lead you. Because faith isn't telling God exactly what to do. Faith is saying, Father, this is what I want. This is what I'm asking for. But above everything else, I trust you. That kind of surrender doesn't mean you've stopped believing. It means you've stopped trying to control everything. And there is freedom in that. Imagine how much energy you spent trying to control things that were never completely in your hands. Other people's decisions, other people's opinions, the timing of events, the future, the past, things you cannot change. What if you released some of that today? What if you said, God, I give you what I cannot control. Then breathe. You may still have problems tomorrow, but you don't have to carry them tonight. And before this message ends, I want you to remember one final thing. Don't ignore the small voice telling you to come back to God. Don't ignore the desire to pray. Don't ignore the conviction to forgive. Don't ignore the need to change direction. Don't ignore the opportunity to make peace. Don't ignore the person who may need your encouragement. Sometimes the message you've been waiting for isn't about what God is going to give you. Sometimes it's about what He's asking you to release. Release the fear. Release the bitterness. Release the obsession with controlling the outcome. Release the belief that you're alone. Release the shame. Release the need to understand everything right now. And make room for peace. Make room for faith. Make room for hope. Because there is still hope for you. There is still purpose for you. There is still a future beyond what you're experiencing right now. So if you needed a sign to keep going, let this be a reminder. Don't quit in the middle of the story. Don't make a permanent decision based on a temporary season. Don't allow today's pain to convince you that tomorrow cannot hold something beautiful. Keep walking. Keep praying. Keep trusting. And when you don't know what to do next, take the next faithful step. You don't need to see the whole road. You just need enough light for the step in front of you. And if all you can do today is hold on to a tiny amount of faith, hold on to it. A small amount of genuine faith is still faith. If all you can pray is, God, help me, pray it. If all you can say is, I trust you, say it. And if you can't find the words at all, sit quietly before Him. Your silence can become a prayer too, because God knows what is happening inside your heart, even when you cannot explain it. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. You are not finished. And this is not the end. Let that truth stay with you today. And when fear returns, and it may, remember what you heard here. Pause, pray, breathe, trust, then take one more step. God is not asking you to have tomorrow figured out. He's asking you to trust Him with today. And now, before you move on to the rest of your day, I want you to do something simple. Stop for a moment, take a deep breath, and say this quietly, even if you don't feel it yet. God, I trust you with what I cannot see. Say it again. God, I trust you with what I cannot see. Because sometimes faith isn't about feeling confident. Sometimes faith is choosing to trust while your heart is still trembling. Maybe you don't know how your situation will change. Maybe you don't know when the answer will come. Maybe you don't know what the next chapter looks like. But you can still choose trust today. And if you're facing something that feels impossible, don't let the size of the problem make you forget the size of your God. The situation may be bigger than your strength, but it is not bigger than God's ability to sustain you. The waiting may be longer than you expected, but it does not mean you've been forgotten. The road may be different from what you planned, but a different road doesn't automatically mean a wrong road. Sometimes God redirects us because He sees something we cannot. Sometimes the door closes because the destination isn't what we thought it was. And sometimes the answer takes longer because there is preparation happening that we cannot see. You don't have to understand every reason. You can trust the one who sees every reason. So if you've been asking, what should I do now? Start here. Pray. Ask God for wisdom. Ask Him to show you what you need to release. Ask Him to show you what you need to pursue. Ask Him to give you courage for the things you already know you need to do. And then listen. Not every answer will come dramatically. Sometimes clarity arrives quietly. Sometimes you recognize the next step only after you stop trying to force the entire future into your hands. Give yourself permission to slow down. You don't have to make every decision tonight. You don't have to solve every problem today. You don't have to carry every person. You don't have to predict every possible outcome. Do what you can. Give God what you cannot. And trust Him with the difference. If you're worried about your family, pray for them. If you're worried about your finances, ask for wisdom and take the next responsible step. If you're worried about your health, seek the help you need and ask God for strength through the process. If you're grieving, allow yourself to grieve. If you've been hurt, begin the journey toward forgiveness. If you've made mistakes, learn from them and begin again. Faith doesn't mean ignoring reality. Faith means refusing to let reality become the only thing you can see. There is always more to the story than the moment you're currently standing in. And perhaps that's the greatest reminder of all. Your current situation is not your complete identity. Your bank account isn't your worth. Your relationship status isn't your worth. Your past isn't your worth. Your failures aren't your worth. Other people's opinions aren't your worth. You are valuable because God created you, and no difficult season can erase that. So don't let rejection convince you that you're unwanted. Don't let failure convince you that you're useless. Don't let delay convince you that you're forgotten. Don't let loneliness convince you that you'll always be alone. Don't let fear convince you that your future is already ruined. Those thoughts may feel powerful, but feelings are not always facts. Bring them into the light. Bring them to God, and replace the lies with truth. You are still here. There is still breath in your lungs. There are still choices in front of you. There are still people you can love. There are still prayers you can pray. There are still lessons you can learn. There are still opportunities to grow. And there is still hope. Maybe the breakthrough you've been expecting won't look exactly the way you imagined, but don't make the mistake of assuming that means God isn't working. Sometimes the greatest blessing isn't getting exactly what we ask for. Sometimes it's becoming the person who can handle what comes next. Sometimes God changes the circumstances. Sometimes He changes our hearts. Sometimes He does both. And sometimes the greatest miracle is simply receiving enough peace to keep walking. If that's all you have today, that's enough for today. You don't have to feel extraordinary. You don't have to feel powerful. You don't have to feel completely confident. Just keep going. One day, one prayer, one decision, one step. And when tomorrow comes, do it again. That's how many impossible seasons are survived. Not by seeing the entire road, but by refusing to stop taking the next step. So wherever you're listening from right now, I want you to remember this. You are not forgotten. Your prayers are not meaningless. Your tears are not invisible. Your waiting is not automatically wasted. Your past is not the end of your story. And your future is not something you have to fear. Place it in God's hands. Let Him lead. Let Him correct you when necessary. Let Him comfort you when you're hurting. Let Him strengthen you when you're weak. Let Him redirect you when you've chosen the wrong path. And let Him surprise you with what you never expected. Most importantly, don't walk away from God simply because His answer didn't arrive in the package you expected. Sometimes the answer is wait. Sometimes it's not this. Sometimes it's let go. Sometimes it's move. Sometimes it's forgive. And sometimes it's simply, trust me. If that's the only thing you hear today, let it be enough. Trust Him with the unanswered question. Trust Him with the person you cannot change. Trust Him with the door you cannot open. Trust Him with the future you cannot predict. Trust Him with the pain you don't understand. And trust Him with yourself. Now let's pray. Father, thank You for every person who has stayed until this moment. You know exactly what they're carrying. You know the fears they haven't told anyone. You know the prayers they've repeated over and over. You know the dreams they are afraid to hope for again. You know the disappointment, the grief, the confusion, the financial pressure, the family struggles, the loneliness, and the uncertainty. Lord, meet them exactly where they are. Give them peace where their minds have been overwhelmed. Give them strength where they feel weak. Give them wisdom where they don't know what decision to make. Give them courage where fear has been controlling them. Give them comfort where their hearts have been wounded. And give them hope where they have begun to believe there is no way forward. Help them release what they cannot control. Help them forgive what needs to be forgiven. Help them recognize what needs to change. And give them the courage to take the next right step. Father, when the answer is delayed, help them trust. When the door closes, help them believe you are still leading. When they experience disappointment, protect their hearts from bitterness. When they feel alone, remind them that they are never outside your care. And when they cannot see what comes next, give them enough faith for today. Thank you for your mercy. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for every new beginning. Thank you that our mistakes don't have to be our final chapter. Thank you that we can come back. We can begin again. We can hope again. We can trust again. And we can keep walking. Place your peace over every person listening right now. Let them leave this message with a lighter heart and a stronger faith. Help them remember that their circumstances may change, but your faithfulness remains. In Jesus' name, amen. And if you prayed that prayer sincerely, don't rush away just yet. Take one more breath and remind yourself, I don't need to know everything God is doing. I only need to trust Him with the next step. If this message spoke directly to your heart, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs hope today. And before you leave, write, I trust God in the comments. Let that be your declaration of faith today. Whatever you're facing, keep praying, keep believing, keep trusting, and most importantly, don't give up before you see what God can do with the chapter you're living through right now.